Alright, so this is going to be a quick breakdown of GenG, one of the absolute best teams right now, and I think a potential favorite for every title they are competing in, to be honest. So in this video we will look at their general playing style, we look at their strengths and their weaknesses, we will also look a bit at the players in isolation and what they are good at, and then we will kind of find a conclusion. So in the end you will have a good overview on what kind of team this is and what you can kind of expect from them. So when looking at their playing style, this is really probably the strongest defensive team in the world. And what I mean by defensive is, this is the kind of team, when you make a play and you have a strong position for yourself, they won't fight you, they will find another play, they won't go for low percentage fights, they will always look somewhere else on the map to kind of compete against you and kind of keep the game even. And they don't really give you a chance to fight at your strongest points, like for example if you are in the position where you have item advantages or you have a really strong carry and they are a bit behind, they won't fight you, they will go around the map and they will find advantages somewhere else. This is what they always do every game. This is really consistent with their playstyle. So they play a very low risk style of play, and in general this is just a team, they don't skirmish a lot, they are really not skirmish heavy at all. So sometimes you see games where 20 minutes are gone and it's still zero kills for both teams. Because they really don't fight if there is not a really clear advantage for them. They always prefer trading objectives over fighting a potentially losing fight. This also comes together with them being one of the absolute strongest macro teams in the world. They have insanely good macro gameplay. I recently made a video where I looked at this a little bit, because there was one sequence in the final against T1 which was so beautiful. I think it was game 1, quite early in the game. It's perfect macro gameplay by them, and this is kind of the peak of what they can really show you sometimes. Really great stuff. And it really shows how difficult it can be against GenG to find any kind of openings in their game. And this all comes together with them having probably some of the best individual players as well, with the likes of Chovy and Keen, for example. Extremely strong individual players, and all of this together, it really forms a team that's so consistent and really hard to break down. So when we look at the individual players, let's first look at Keen. I think Keen, one of the most underrated players in the past years. I think finally he has found a team that's really up to the standard that he should have for himself. I think he's one of the best top laners for years now, to be honest. A really strong laning ability, really strong fundamentals. Also, he's just the kind of player that really understands how to help his team really well. So his map movements are really in sync often with his team. He does a lot of things, little things like where he hovers for every play. Things like that really is something to notice when you look at only him play. Also, he has quite a big champion pool, so he's a really complete player, a complete package. And yeah, I'm really excited to see him compete internationally with this kind of roster. Then we come to Canyon. I think most people, they know Canyon already. He's one of the most legendary junglers we have. And Canyon, this split, he really changed his playstyle quite a bit to accommodate his team. Because of course with these kind of players where you have so strong laners on every position, it doesn't make much sense to play like this carry style of jungles. So he plays a lot of supportive jungles to split. Besides Lee Sin, of course, he still plays a lot of Lee Sin. But in general, he plays much more around his lanes now and less for himself and less farming. Plays a lot more around the wave states he has. And this is really possible because the laners are so consistent in the way they play and they are really smart about their wave manipulation. So he can really make a lot of plays happen like that. And still he remains really flexible, so he can still pull out carry junglers anytime. We saw this with the Kha'Zix, for example, where they opted into more of a full clear style for one game. And it worked out quite well, so they are still really flexible when it comes to that, and it's always a possibility. So this is quite interesting for this team. But in general, he's just really good at also supportive junglers and finding engages and things like that. Then we come to Chovy. For me, Chovy probably one of, if not the absolute best individual player we have right now in all of League of Legends. This guy, his floor is so incredible, probably at the highest level when it comes to laning for years now. Really incredible matchup knowledge, spacing, recall timers, everything when it comes to the fundamentals, absolutely perfect. Really clean mechanics. He's also more of a playmaker nowadays. such a good player. Also one of the best side laners, so this is also one of the reasons why he's always so high in his CS per minute, because he really knows how to side lane. And this is also really good because he always stays relevant in any game. He also plays around his timers really well if he plays champions like Corki with the package or Aurelion Sol with his R, for example. He always has them up for every important fight, which also, of course, it comes a bit with the style of their play, where they don't opt for useless fights. But this is just something to note as well. So I think Chovy at this point still a complete standout player, and I think he really kind of completed his game a bit because he plays more. He understands more how to play towards his team and not only for himself. So I think this is probably the best version of Chovy we have seen so far. When it comes to pace, really young player, really talented. I think in this team he plays more of a lower role than before. I think last year he was more of the main focus a lot of the times. This year he is a bit less of a focus and he's more of a secondary role, let's say, which also kind of reflects on his gameplay. So it's a bit hard to judge him, to be honest. I think he does everything they need him to do, but there are some potential weaknesses to be exploited for other teams. And lastly, Lehens. I think Lehen's insanely consistent this year, and also for me it's an important kind of player because he has quite a lot of experience for this team, and also he is probably their most creative player when it comes to the things he does. Sometimes can be really unexpected. Also he has some interesting picks as well, so I think this is quite a nice. He can sometimes throw a bit of a curveball there, which is something they definitely need sometimes. So when we look at all of them together as a team, I think their biggest strength, it really lies in their consistency, not only as individuals, but also in their playing style, because it denies a lot of variance in the game, and it makes it really hard to break them down. They play around objective timers really well, they are always on time, and if they are not on time because the game doesn't allow it, they don't force any bad fights and engages. They understand how to play the map and how to gain advantages somewhere else, so they really know when to contest and when not to. This is really one of their biggest strengths, I think. Also their lane assignments are really strong. Like they really know how to play the side lanes according to the objectives and to the wave state. So especially Chovy and Keen, like they are really good in playing on 3 lanes and maximizing their efficiency and maximizing the farm to both stay really relevant in the game and always stay kind of strong and have a chance to come back at any point if they fall behind. Another strength of this team, I think their coordination. I think Canyon fit really well into this team. He keeps everything together, especially with Chovy and Keen. I think he has really good synergy. They are really on sync, as also when playing these kind of side lanes. He knows where to be, so this is also one of their strongest points. And I think, to be honest, in the current form, we can just say Chovy alone is one of their biggest strengths, because his performance is really incredible. I don't want to hype him too much because it always happens every international tournament, but it is just deserved. If you watch him play, you will understand it. And one last thing that they didn't show yet, because it is quite new with the lane swaps, I think this team is the ideal team to really dominate lane swaps if they want to. I think they have the perfect players for it, because first of all, one thing about the lane swaps is that when you play lane swaps, the top laners usually fall behind, and the bot laners are also slightly weaker than they should be, or not should be, but they are normally, because you rotate quite a lot around. So there you lose time, so you can get some CS, you can get some XP, and you are not as far ahead in the game as you would be in a normal game, let's say, if you compare it. But the mid laner is not that involved in this kind of situations. So he is really kind of mostly just staying mid lane. He's not that involved in the side lane plays, and he gets kind of ahead of the game. So the top laners are much further behind and the bot laners are slightly more behind. So mid laners will be the strongest point in the game in lane swaps, which is of course perfect for GenG because this just puts more strength into Chovy. Also Keen is just very good at knowing where to be on the map and where to position. So I think in lane swaps this is also something that kind of facilitates that even more. And if you look at the bot lane, which is sometimes not quite as consistent as the rest of the team, this can kind of even the field when you look at the absolute best LPL bot lanes. So at this point you might think, well, how do you even beat them if they are so good and they are so great? Are there even any weaknesses? Are they just good at everything? Well, I would say there are some points to attack even on GenG. So first of all, I think you can try to get an advantage through the bot lane because their bot lane laning I think is not as dominant as it could be on a lot of picks. So I think what you can do is you can try to really pick a strong bot lane and then split the map early with the level 1 and then kind of try to play really towards bot lane and dive bot lane level 3 and things like that. I think this is kind of an approach you can take against GenG, which can make them struggle a bit. So you need an advantageous bot lane matchup, of course, and then you kind of need a stronger level 1 to achieve that. But you can also try to do, which is a bit harder because they play so controlled, is you can try to make the game more chaotic. So you make the game more skirmish heavy, and you play kind of a pick comp and picks that really facilitate that. For example, like a LeBlanc, for example, could work. And you kind of break apart a bit of their game plan and you have them improvise a bit more. Another potential weakness is maybe their lack of creativity, I would say. I think this is not a team that will pull out something completely crazy or do a play that is like really high risk, high reward. They never do these kind of things. So you always kind of know what to expect from this team, and preparation should not be as hard compared to some other teams. One more thing to note maybe, there is a bit of an over-reliance on Chovy sometimes in this team, where they really rely on him to just bait him out in the absolute late game where he is like 4 items strong. I think this is something at least to worry about if they play against some of the best mid laners like Knight, where maybe he doesn't get the kind of advantage he usually gets. But all in all, I think this is of course much easier said than done. This is one of the absolute favorites of the tournament, and I think they will also be a favorites for Worlds. They have great players in every role, and there barely are any mistakes that they make, really, at least in this kind of team sense. Sometimes there are of course individual errors, but not that often, so there's not much to punish for you, and you have to really be on the initiative against them and really create your advantages on your own. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, whatever you feel like. Maybe I missed something, leave it in the comments, and I will see you on the next one.